here's your host, Alex Garrett.
This is going to be a two-pronged approach to the Alex Garrett Sports Spotlight. A little bit later, you'll hear from Lou Terminello, my buddy Lou, who gives us Terminello's take. But first, this beautiful opportunity came up from a radio friend of mine and a guy you've heard on the show before, Rockies play-by-play man Jerry Schemmel. Jerry, tell us about the opportunity that has been afforded for both of us this weekend.
Yeah, it's been awesome. You have been so kind to be a guest on my radio show called Amazing Americans. We're on a radio network, and it's available as a podcast after that. And doing the show for about 5 years now, I guess. Got a couple hundred in the can, but the whole idea is a sports-connected person who has overcome incredible odds or a big inspiration, highly inspiring person like yourself, Alex, to be my guest and tell his story. So honored, so blessed to have you do that, to take all this time for Amazing Americans. And I loved every moment of it. Thank you again.
I'm very excited that an email that I had seen just a year ago has turned into this friendship and now a radio hit with you. I can't believe that it's turned into that, but thank God, right? So let me ask you though. I brought you on to talk sports, but while we were outside Citi Field, I asked you if you can elaborate just a little bit. You're not only the Rockies play-by-play announcer, but we gravitate because you also have overcome challenges. And I know that it's far more than what I've dealt with being born. One, you survived a plane crash. And I still to this day regret not saying that the first time I had you on. But did that plane crash survival teach you? What would that teach you, and how did that motivate you the rest of your life? Because I feel like once you survive that, that was the rest of your life after that survival.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I will say this. I'm a completely different person, Alex, than I was before that crash. You didn't know me before the crash, and I was a young, cocky, full of myself individual, thought he had the world figured out. And that plane crash just completely humbled me. It completely changed my life. It brought me to Christ, which is the greatest thing that it's done. But it's just, I think it's done that with everybody who survived our crash, and probably every plane crash survivor that's ever been has life changed that way. So I think to kind of roll it up, it would be this. It would be life is incredibly precious. It's short. There's a little boy sitting in front of me, 2 years old. He's 2.5 feet away from me. He dies in the crash, and I survive without any serious injuries. It so easily could have been reversed. And I just know how precious life is, how quickly it can go. And I just think we need to take advantage of it and make it the best of every opportunity. I say this all the time. I say everybody dies, but not everybody really lives. And after surviving this plane crash, I want to really live.
You got to tell us about the book, because I know you wrote a book about it as well.
Yeah, it's called Chosen to Live. I can't believe this, but it's been out 30 years. I can't believe it. And it's still got my old picture on the cover of it. I can't believe it. I wrote that book that long ago. But Chosen to Live is about the crash. I described probably half the book's about the crash itself, getting on that plane that day, the crazy circumstance that I ended up on that plane, the crash itself, the aftermath, and then life subsequent to it. And the idea behind the book was, the message was, Alex, hey, everybody's got their own plane crash. Man, you have yours. I know that, Alex. But everybody has their own plane crash. It might not be as bad as what you and I have been through. It might be way worse than what you and I have been through. Everybody has their own plane crash. Everybody gets knocked down. And the key, though, is once you get knocked down, having God come into your life and help you back up. And when you do that way, when you ask God into your life to help you get back up, he makes you better than you were before you got knocked down. And that's my message for people with that book, Chosen to Live.
All right. Well, this is going to uplift people just listening to your story and how upbeat you are that you survived this crash. But I've got to ask you this. Is Chris Bryant really raking down in spring training? Come on now. 3 homers, you told me.
Oh, yeah, he's got 3 homers so far, and 3 homers and some loud outs as well, Alex. You know, I was thinking about him just yesterday again. If he's healthy, that's the biggest key for the Rockies, because he not only adds that great punch in your lineup, but he really does make people around him better. You know, the Rockies had a terrible record last year, one of the worst teams in baseball, but when he played, when he played 42 games. The team was 21-21. They weren't great, but they were a 500 team when he's in the lineup. That's the contribution that he gives when he's healthy. And right now, Alex, he looks like he's really healthy, and he's raking. He's got 3 homers, and there might be a couple more before the spring is over.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is the 30th year of Rockies baseball, is it not?
It is. Yep, 30-year anniversary. Yep, big celebration year for the Rockies this year. All kinds of festivities throughout the year.
Well, we'll have to. As I was telling you as I've told you before, I can't wait to go out to Colorado as an adult. My dad took me to the first Rockies game here at Shea Stadium in '93, and then out to the first home game in Colorado in '93. And I'd love to do it again as an adult. I would love to go see it because that field just looks so cool.
Oh, it's so great. You were at Mile High Stadium, which was a football field converted to a baseball stadium, but Coors Field is baseball only, and it's beautiful. And it's amazing. It's 26, 27 years old now, 28 years old, and still looks like it did the day that it was opened. It really does. They take great care of it. It's a great place to watch a ball game. Great weather in the summertime, so come on out. We'll see. We'll make sure you have a good time.
One last thing, and I still can't get over that the week we were talking about having you on this show, you were getting hired by the Rockies again. Retell that story for listeners that just are joining the podcast network.
Yeah, crazy. I did the Rockies for 11 seasons. Yeah, 11 years. And then a couple weeks after that 11th season, I get a call from I don't actually work for the team. I work for the radio station, and it's iHeartMedia, and they laid off 975 people in one day, and I got caught up in that, so I lost my job, and so I didn't do the Rockies the 2 COVID years. So I guess that if you're going to miss 2 years, the 2 COVID years are probably the good ones to miss. And then I never thought I would get this phone call, but I got a phone call right before the season started last year, the day before the opening game, day before the season began. Hey, would you want to come back? The other guy didn't work out that we kind of filled in for you. You want to come back? So I'm entering my 12th season and my second go-around with the Rockies.
Well, this is very cool, and hopefully this is the year you get to really root them on the radio and see what happens. All right, well, one last thing, because we're talking about radio, we're talking about podcasting. Why is baseball play-by-play, and why I feel like there's such a push to put people on streaming, but I feel like that's such a disservice to sports radio, especially the play-by-play world, right?
I think so, Alex. I think baseball is different play-by-play wise. It's almost made for radio. I've done the NBA basketball, I've done college football, and they're fun to do the play-by-play. But baseball was meant to be on the radio. I don't know what it is, but we get a reaction from so many people. Hey, I got the radio on. I'm doing yard work, or I'm on the back patio having a beer, or watching the sunset and listening to you. It's just made for radio. So I think for anybody to do anything to spoil that, I think it's disservice to the game and to the radio world as well. So I hope that is not the trend. I think we're surviving, at least for the most part, we're surviving with radio, and especially with baseball, and hope that continues.
All right, Jerry, one last thought. Any prediction on the World Baseball Classic? I got to ask you that because Team USA looks pretty strong now.
Oh, they do. What a lineup they have. I don't know if they have the great pitching that we might see with the Dominican and maybe Cuba and some others, Japan, but they certainly have the lineup. So I think it belongs to the U.S. I was talking to Nolan Arenado the other day. He played in the U.S. team in 2017 that won that World Baseball Classic, and he couldn't wait to get back and defend that championship. So he got me all fired up. So I'm picking the Americans. I'm picking Team USA.
And how do you know Nolan? Because he was a Rocky, and I will never forget how he hit 2 grand slams, right, in the snow.
Yes, exactly. Hey, very good memory. Very good memory, by the way. Yeah, he's got that, and he also hit for the cycle. And the last hit he had was a home run, which is a walk-off. So how many people in history have done that? A walk-off home run to finish out the cycle. I think there's only 4 or 5 people in the history of the game that have ever done that, and Nolan was one of them.
Well, I know the Colorado area kind of misses him badly, but you know what? You got Chris Bryant. You got some scrappy players on that Rockies team, so we got to see what happens, right?
You know what? I think about this team? I think about what you told me when you were on Amazing Americans, Alex, and that was, you know what? this is what I'm born with. This is the cards that I've been dealt, so I'm going to do the best I can with them. We don't have Nolan Arenado anymore. We've got some other key players that aren't in this roster anymore, but let's take advantage of the guys we have, starting with Chris Bryant, and let's go. Let's play the cards we're dealt, and we'll see what happens.
All right, and for people that want to listen to Great Amazing Americans every weekend, not just this weekend because of circumstances, tell us where we can listen.
Yeah, on our website, amazingamericans.org. All of our shows are archived there, so after they air in the network, they're available the very next day. So we air on the weekends, most of our stations anyway, and then it's available on Monday morning. So amazingamericans.org.
Well, thank you so much, Jerry Schemmel, for this opportunity, and thanks for joining my podcast as well.
You got it, my friend. It was a pleasure for me.
Lou Terminello. Terminello's Take up next on the Alex Garrett Sports Network. My big thanks to Jerry Schemmel for joining this podcast, the Alex Garrett Sports Spotlight. And I want to shine a spotlight on my sponsor, Fanatics Incorporated. That's right, Fanatics. You know, I love them. I'm actually a fanatic for Fanatics, to be honest with you. So much so, you got to check out their World Baseball Classic merchandise. Right now, we've got fitted hats for Team USA. We've got jerseys of different players, including Mike Trout, including Mookie Betts, all right now on that website. Dress like Team USA. Dress like the pros. This World Baseball Classic with Fanatics.com. And if you use the promo code 24SHIP, you get free U.S. shipping. That's right, free shipping to your house. So get ready right now. Get dressed like the pros. Get dressed like Team USA, because we do want to cheer on the red, white, and blue, don't we? All right, well, I got the hyped up theme song, the hyped up podcast open for my buddy Lou Terminello. Lou, it's Terminello's Take. Believe it or not, we missed last week, which is a rarity, is it not?
It is a rarity, but last week was a busy time, so we couldn't squeeze it in. But I'm looking forward to doing it today.
Now, this week is St. Patrick's Day, right? So you got a lot of green themes going on. The St. Patrick's Day green, the Jets green, the Green Bay green, right? And a lot of surprises possibly down the road in one Aaron Rodgers. But we won't get to that right now because, well, first I gotta ask you this. As someone who's been in this podcast world now through me and listening, do you notice that podcasting also, like radio, has a bit of a traffic schedule where these guys organize and, as you were saying, make sure the podcast gets uploaded correctly and in a timely manner?
Yes, and I think as the future of podcasting gets bigger and bigger, you're going to see that even more prominent scheduling, just like a radio or a television show. More advertising. I'm hearing more and more advertising. And one of my friends who is in sports, and he does his own podcast, and wasn't really sure how successful his podcast was. Did some research, found out that more people were listening to his podcast than he thought, and he actually went out and he started pitching sponsors, and he did get a couple of sponsors at decent rates. So that's helped him legitimize his podcast. When you have advertisers, it helps legitimize it. And I think that we're still in the infancy of podcasting, of where it's going to go down the road. No doubt about it.
Well, as you know, this app, Spreaker, this podcast flagship of this network, is offering it to everybody for free, offering the monetization, the ability to just create and become podcasts. I think that's important too. When these outlets...
Oh, I think it is. I actually agree. And that is a smart strategic move. And I think you're going to see a lot of people take advantage of that.
But let's get to the brass tacks of what's going on, because we're going to wait on the Rodgers speculation. Jimmy G going to Vegas is what it is. I mean, that's kind of a big deal, and you were wondering if he was going to go back to San Francisco. But I want to focus on something very, very local. Iona and UConn tipping off against each other the first round of the NCAA tournament. Come on, Lou, you can't ask for anything better than that, right?
No, that's a very interesting first-round matchup. Iona, obviously, with Rick Pitino, and we hear that Rick Pitino has been courted by Texas Tech, by Georgetown, by St. John's. My Big East insider says 90% sure that once the Iona season ends, whether it's they pull off the upset against UConn, and that, in my opinion, would be an upset, but it wouldn't be a monumental upset. They're going to be ready to go. They're a tough team. They have tough guards. Soda at UConn, as we know, has a very talented team, but there's pressure on UConn. UConn cannot lose to Iona. Danny Hurley has lost in the first round the last 2 times UConn was in the tournament. So there's going to be pressure on UConn. I mean, I think UConn will survive. I think it's going to be a good game. But I think Pitino seems to be leaning towards going to St. John's, and St. John's does need that infusion of energy that Rick Pitino would bring to them. There's going to be an awakening with St. John's. They need that major shot in the arm. They really do. They haven't been relevant for over 20 years, 25 years. And the one thing Rick Pitino will do is he will make them relevant again. There's no doubt about it. And this Big East insider also told me that the coach of Providence, Ed Cooley, has been thrown a boatload of money to leave Providence to go to Georgetown. Now, Cooley is from Providence. He's loyal to Providence. I don't know if he's using that Georgetown interest to get a new contract from Providence, but that's an interesting scenario to look at.
Well, you know what else is interesting is the fact that our guy, and I feel a soft spot for this because I worked with him, even if it wasn't directly through the radio world. Kevin Willard is taking Maryland to the big dance, and you talk about a program that needed a turnaround. That was definitely the case. And remember, Lou, last year around this time they were chanting his name in Maryland. Now he's taking him to the big dance. So I guess that contract paid off, and that signing paid off, and he seems to be happier down there.
Well, this is the transition year for Maryland, and they were 7th seed in the NCAAs. So Kevin Willard has had a spectacularly successful first year at the University of Maryland. This is going to be his first recruiting year at Maryland. I think the future bodes well for Maryland under Kevin Willard. And this is all a bonus. This is all a bonus, and they're an 8th seed, not a 7th seed. They're an 8th seed, and they're in the 8-9 game against West Virginia, who I don't think should have been in the tournament. There were 7-11 in the Big 12, and they were an 8th in a 10-team conference. 7-11 in your conference. I know the Big 12 is the best conference in the country, but 7-11, I don't care what the metrics say. I can't put them in over Rutgers, who I think got shafted by the NCAA. They beat 7 teams in the tournament. Rutgers got hosed, in my opinion.
And the rest of the Garden State. In fact, I guess Murphy made it a point to point out that Rutgers got shafted. I mean, I wish he'd focus on New Jersey, but that's okay. We can,
you're right there.
We can focus on basketball for a minute. No, but it would have been well deserved. I mean, look, under Peichel, they've had an incredible year, and the last couple of years have been incredible, to be honest with you.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about it. But when you see North Carolina State getting in, and they were a bubble team, they were on the 11 line, which means that they were a bubble team because under 11, it's the teams from those lesser conferences like the Southland, the WAC, the Mid-American, and North Carolina State got in. Clemson which was on the bubble with North Carolina State, beat North Carolina State 3 times by 14, 25, and 26 points. They won at Pitt that's in the tournament. They beat Duke. Clemson not getting in is a head scratcher also. But
and then, of course, we got, and you seem to have followed this down to the wire. I know there were a lot of different snubs, and of course the NIT is going to be talked about as well because Michigan's there. They, for the first time, I guess, since 15, they haven't made the tournament, which is a a change. I mean, Michigan is always a prestigious franchise that makes it into the dance, right? So it's a bit of a change. But a little more closer to home, upstate New York, Hughes says goodbye to Jim Boeheim. He is officially retired. Now, I didn't know this, Lou. Maybe you did. There were talks of this happening for quite a while, have there not?
Yes, well, actually, going back 4 or 5 years, he had announced that he was going to retire in a couple of years. And Mike Hopkins was deemed his successor when Boeheim was supposed to retire. And that time, and I want to say it was like 2017 or 2018, and Boeheim didn't retire. So Mike Hopkins, when he got a chance to get the Washington job, took it. So it's been going on for a while, but Syracuse handled this departure poorly. Obviously, even now, even though he says he's ready to retire and he's happy, as he had the press conference the other day introducing Adrian Autry, one of his former players, as new head coach, he definitely didn't want to retire. He wanted to stay at Syracuse. And the way Syracuse handled it that day after they lost in the ACC tournament was sloppy, to be kind. You got to remember, Boeheim made Syracuse. He contributed to the greatness of the program. He contributed to the greatness of the Big East Conference. I mean, 20 Sweet 16s, 5 Final Fours, 1 championship, 2 runners-up. He came within an eyelash of winning against Indiana in 1987. They lost in 1996 to a great Kentucky team at the Milllands. He should have been able to call his own shot. He was annoyed. Syracuse did bungle it at the end as far as his retirement announcement. But he's a great coach. All things come to an end. It's going to be interesting to see how Syracuse is down the road.
You were not at that 5 overtime game between Connecticut and Syracuse, were you?
No, I wasn't in the building. I did watch it.
You stayed up for 5 overtime? That's a sports fan right there, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Because, that one made...
Just think, Alex, just think the millions of dollars that Syracuse received, not only filling up the dome with 30,000 people. They said they would never be able to fill the dome after they left Manley Fieldhouse, which was that classic old college gym, seated 9,000, and they'd never be able to fill up a 30,000-seat building. Well, they did. They had, even a couple of weeks ago against Duke, they had 33,000. So he'll be missed. Great coach. Obviously, the Syracuse iconic 2-3 zone. Nobody played it better than they did, and they adjusted to it when the three-point shot became even more prominent. They were aggressive. He'll be missed. He'll be missed, but time to move on. Well, they just handled the ending poorly.
Yeah, in the years that they've been on 970, there are a few names that stick out. Buddy Boeheim, Trevor Cooney, and then back in the 2013, 2014. Remember, we were the station that carried them through their 17-game win streak, that undefeated year. So there were a lot of moments on 970 alone that we carried.
Yeah, it sure was. There was 17. There was 17, and they lost to Boston College to have that streak. And they went to the Final Four. Like I said, 5 times. He'll be missed. We've lost Roy Williams. And by lost, I mean they're still alive, thank God. But in the coaching industry, we've lost Roy Williams, we lost Mike Krzyzewski. We've now lost Boeheim from the pantheon of great coaches. So John Shire seems to have done a good job at Duke, winning the ACC championship in his first year. So.
How long does Izzo go? I think he's now the longest tenured, coach. I mean, he's been there forever, it feels like. So how long does Izzo have left?
I'm sorry, you mean Rick Pitino?
No, Tom Izzo. He's also one that's been.
Yes, Tom Izzo is. Yeah, I would say that he has no intention of retiring. I know Pitino says he wants to coach 6 more years. I would say Izzo probably wants to coach another 4 or 5 years for sure. Michigan State's in the tournament again. I don't think they're a great team, but Izzo is a great tournament coach. So they'll be a very interesting team to follow in the tournament.
All right, and by the way, they're coming off a very emotionally charged second half. As we all know, that tragic shooting in Michigan State, which united basically the entire Big Ten to rally around their own, right? You know, they play against each other, but at the end of the day, they are one conference, and they all cheer on each other when they make it. I would have to believe when they make it to the big dance, like, okay, well, this is from the Big Ten. Maybe I'll root for them, right? I mean, they might go like that.
There are conference loyalties. There's no doubt about it. You are correct. Especially before these expansion years, the ACC, when it came to basketball, even if Carolina, we know Carolina and Duke, it's a huge rivalry. It's like Yankee-Red Sox. But they would still root for the other team in the conference. Same thing with SEC football now. The SEC has had so much success in the college playoff scenario that even when they lose, when an LSU loses to an Auburn or an Alabama or a Tennessee, whoever it is, the SEC, there's SEC loyalty among the fans, no matter which team they root for. I don't know how, with this expansion, I don't know how, if that's going to continue in the years ahead. But right now, I think it is still there.
Well, I don't know. With Alabama, I feel like everybody in the SEC hates Alabama, even if they make, I don't know, just because they're every year. But you know what?
Well, Auburn hates Alabama, that's for sure.
That's still a credit to Nick Saban. I'm not. We can get into their coaching styles another time because I want to get to another story, which is the fact that and this is one of the reasons I'm bringing on, because you've been an industry executive with the Nets. Your Nets turned it around somehow after losing KD and Durant. And you know what? Winning 5 out of their last 6, maybe it was a culture change that was needed, right? I mean, it seems like the Nets are carrying themselves. And did you think that they were going to be out of the playoffs or that spot in positioning in the conference when those two got traded? Or did you see them staying pretty okay after they left?
Alex, when they made those 2 trades in 4 days, trading mercurial ultra superstars in Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, I thought they were going to plunge into the play-in tournament, or maybe out of even the play-in tournament. To change the way you construct your team in the middle of February, incorporate 4 new starters, totally change your rotation. Some guys that were playing 15, 20 minutes in the rotation, like Utah Watanabe, don't see the court anymore, and he's an effective player. Cam Thomas, who had those 3 consecutive 40-point games, didn't play a game last week in a win. Played 7 minutes another night. So they're still going through trying to figure out who to play where and when. But Jock Vaughn's done a great job. They're undersized, and I got to give Sean Marks a lot of credit. He got back significant players when his back was to the wall. He was not dealing from strength. And he got all those draft picks, and he got Dorian Finney-Smith, who apparently, after they got him, a team called the Nets and said, we'll give you 2 number 1s for him. They got Mikal Bridges, who finished second in the Defensive Player of the Year voting last year. And since he's come to the Nets, he's had 5 or 6 30-point games. He had 2 in his first 365 games with Phoenix. The guy has been able to expand his game in the 1 month he's been here. Another thing I heard is that after the Nets got Mikal Bridges, a team called Sean Marks and said, we'll give you 3 number 1s for him. So while losing ultra superstars, and to get over the top, you're going to need that superstar down the road. But what they've done has been pretty impressive. Lack of practice time to incorporate these new guys. Winning at Denver on Sunday, the team that's the number one seed in the West. They almost won at Milwaukee when they rested some guys last Thursday night. They were down 2 points with about 3 minutes to go. They lost by 6. Winning the next night in Minnesota. Yeah, it's been impressive. They have 14 games left. If they can get through this road trip and survive, the last 11 games, 9 of them are at Barclays Center. So maybe they can avoid, and I think they will, the play-in, and maybe they could even finish 5th. If they can finish 5th and play Cleveland in the first round, that will be an interesting series.
Well, I'll tell you this: the fact that I feel like this was kicked off by coming back from 28 against the Celtics and beating them that Friday night about a week ago. That really kickstarted this whole thing, because up until that point there was no spark with the Nets, was there not?
Well, that 28-point comeback, down 28 points in the third quarter against a team that was flying high in the Celtics. You just didn't figure on that comeback. But they hung in there. I think, again, teams take on the personality of their coach, and Jacques Vaughn is involved in every possession. He's a very, very upbeat guy. I think they're responding to him. He has done a tremendous job in a very, very tough situation. And that they never gave up in that game. The Celtics had to be shocked that they blew a 28-point lead, and it triggered them to have this good road trip. I mean, winning in Denver, was very, very impressive.
Why is there issues around Julius Randle? I want to switch teams here because obviously the Knicks are a factor here also, and it's cool to say that both teams could be are well on the playoff hunt here. It's rare we say that, but here we are. So the Knicks, I guess there's concerns about Julius Randle. Is he hurt? Is he not effective enough? I know he was lighting it up there during the 9-game win streak for them.
Yeah, then they lost 3 in a row. And on Saturday, Randle shot 5-24 in a game against the Los Angeles Clippers out in L.A. And, it seemed like he had lost his cool. Started yelling at teammates, got another technical. Sometimes he seems to be a little thin-skinned. He's a very, very skilled player. Obviously he's an NBA-level scorer. The guy scores 25 points a game. Then on Sunday night, in a game that I thought the Knicks would probably lose, I'll be honest with you, they led the second half, and Randle had a tremendous game. And he's had a very, very, very good season overall. I think there's pressure on him. I think he sometimes feels pressure. I think he doesn't blot out the noise around him, and I think that affects him. But he's a very good player. He's not the main cog. He probably would be better off on a team where he was the third wheel when a couple of stars/superstars were the straw that stirs the drink, as they say. But that's why Brunson has helped. And now Brunson's been injured the last couple of games, the last 3 games, and I think I'm not sure if he's coming back in the next game or not, but it seems like he's getting closer to returning. Brunson makes a difference. Brunson is better than I thought when you start seeing him on an everyday basis. He controls the floor. He takes pressure off Randle and other guys. He takes pressure off Barrett. Barrett had a big game against the Lakers on Sunday night. So we'll see. I mean, the Knicks are going to make the playoffs. I thought the Knicks' high water mark for wins would be 44. They're at 40. They'll be about 46, 47, which is, a very, very good year in the NBA. And it's going to be between them and the Nets, it looks like, to see who is number 5 and number 6. You really want to finish 5, because if you finish 5, you play Cleveland, and Cleveland's very good. And I'm not saying that the Knicks or Nets would beat Cleveland, but if you finish 6th, you're going to be playing Philly or Milwaukee most likely, and I don't think Boston will slip down to 3rd, but you don't want to play one of those teams.
No, and let's be honest, the Nets have had their nightmares against Milwaukee in the postseason, so there's that history too. All right, last time we checked in, Patrick Kane was just getting used to this Rangers team, and they had a couple of wins here and there, but I don't know. They just seem like they haven't found their legs entirely. Am I right on that?
No, you're correct. The Rangers in their last 6 games got 5 out of the possible 6 points, which is tremendous. But they haven't played like a team that got 5 out of 6 points. They got them. Maybe they were fortunate they got them. But the Rangers haven't found their legs. They have a month ago before the playoffs begin. I still think they are going to be a major, major threat to anybody that they play in the playoffs. And I think they have a chance to go a long way. Right now, we don't know. It looked like a couple of weeks ago it was going to be a Devils Rangers in the first round. It still might be, but the Devils have now caught Carolina, and maybe it'll be Carolina and the Rangers. And the Rangers did beat them last year. I think the Rangers would beat them again.
I think they beat them in quicker than 7, though. I don't know. I feel like that could be a little better this year. We'll have to see, just because the talent's there. So we got to see.
I agree, and I know Shesterkin hasn't had the Vezina season that he had, but he's a fantastic goalie, and if he just turns it on again, and raises his game up just a little bit, makes that one key save, I'd rather have Shesterkin than most of the other teams who are in the playoffs. I mean, obviously Boston with Allmark is tremendous, and they upgraded the team at the trade deadline. They will go in, even in a loaded Eastern Conference, they'll go in as the favorite to get to the final. But anything can happen in that Eastern Conference playoffs. They're all good teams, all of them, and a couple of good teams are not going to make the playoffs. Whether it's Pittsburgh or the Islanders, the Red Wings have a young team coming on. Washington's still in it.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right. I just thought of a new segment because I want to ask you about him in a little bit. I want to do like a culture shock of the week with Lou Terminello. But before we get to that, one last thing. First of all, can Great Britain get their jerseys right? And secondly, how awesome is it to see Team USA, they're doing their thing. I know they lost a bad one against Mexico, but then they win 2 big games, one against the Brits. I called it the Yankees and the Brits. And then you had Team USA against Canada yesterday. Mike Trout, with that homer, actually looks a bit more healthy than he has in the past. But what are your thoughts so far on the WBC? And yes, the media coverage around it. Is Fox doing a good job?
Well, Fox is doing a good job. They are. The World Baseball Classic has been impressive as far as the number of people in the stands at the Team USA games in Phoenix. They've been 40,000 plus. Here on the East Coast in Miami, they had 45,000 a night. So those games have been, as far as attendance, have been very impressive. In Japan, when Japan played Korea or China, I guess, on one of their games,
Chinese
I'm sorry, I forget who it was
possibly.
against, 46% of the TVs in Japan were watching the Japanese team play. Now, in America, the World Baseball Classic is really an afterthought. But in these other countries, it's not. And I think that's what baseball is banking on. Sure, they want the Americans to have more of an interest in it. But, Alex, even some diehard baseball fans I'm sure they couldn't even tell you about the World Baseball Classic. Couldn't tell you about the U.S. team. The U.S. team's loaded. The Dominican Republic lineup is loaded. So I think as we get further down in this weekend into the knockout stage, the interest will pick up. But it's more interesting for fans outside the country than Americans.
Well, remember, Hideki Matsui, as Jim Cott called him, had a rock star persona, and that's because he was a rock star in Japan. Look, any major baseball breakout star from Japan is a rock star because of their time at the Tokyo Dome. Let's be honest about that.
Oh, for sure. And I was watching a game from the Tokyo Dome, a couple of games, and place is packed.
It's pretty fun.
Packed. It was incredible. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have a great interest in the World Baseball Classic. I watch it as a sports fan, but it's not live or die.
You just want Alonso, Lindor, and McNeil to be healthy after it all.
Well, the Mets have 12 guys that are on various teams, and I actually think that hurts more than it helps. And like you said, you don't want somebody to get injured. That's for sure. The goal, obviously, if you ask, yes, you want to win for your country. It's an incredible honor to represent your country. But let's face it, you can ask any fan of any team, individual team, saying World Series or WBC, and whether it's the Dodgers or the Giants or the Mets, whoever, the Braves, their fans are going to say, "I want to win a World Series."
Well, one last thought here, and we'll have to see. I got my Team USA hat though, like I'm ready for it. But one last thing before we wrap up for today. I know we're going to jump on again if the Rodgers deal becomes final. I know you got some news on that, but we'll get to that on Friday. Culture shock of the week, though, to me, is Grizzlies star John Morant. Are these guys just stupid with their money, or do they think they can get away with anything when they're big stars?
They think they can get away with anything, Alex, because they're immature and because they're stupid with their money.
And to be clear, what I'm talking about is
that's the thing.
He had, brandished a gun in a music video or something. There's video of him brandishing a gun. It's so stupid, but yet now he's indefinitely suspended, I believe.
Well, I'm not sure if he's officially suspended, but he's taken a leave from the team, and he's going to a rehabilitation. They announced late last night that he's going to a rehabilitation program in Florida. Now, I don't know if you saw this picture of him in that strip club in Colorado. I mean, I'm not going to go into detail. It's embarrassing.
And this is a team that's on the run. I mean, the Grizzlies are a hot team in the West right now, so.
It's going to affect them. They can't go anywhere without him in the playoffs, but I don't know if we're even going to see him the rest of the year. But when you give young guys who are immature all that money, they do think that they're invincible, and they think they can get away with anything, and the maturity level is just not there.
No, and he's what is he like? Is he like 20s at this point or early 20s still? Because
he's 23. 22. I mean, he only played, he came into the league at like 19, so he's like 22, 23.
Pretty ugly.
And,
stuff.
Let's face it, he's being treated like royalty since he got to Memphis. And the guy is a spectacular talent, spectacular player. Well, I think he's the closest thing to Kyrie as far as talent level goes.
But up until this point, I thought he also had a good head on his shoulders. Unlike Kyrie, but maybe I was wrong. One last.
Well, the difference between, I think Kyrie is a smart guy. I think Kyrie just is eccentric. I'm not sure that John Morant has a head on his shoulders. He's got into a bunch of incidents. His father got into an incident when they played either the Clippers or the Lakers. It was the Lakers in Los Angeles, and it spilled onto the court with I think Shannon Sharp had a courtside seat. And it got involved into an on-court situation. It's all about maturity, and I saw it when I was in the NBA. These guys have entourages that hurt them, hangers-on that hurt them. I saw it with the Nets.
I'm not. Well, I think you've told me the story of how they would go out like 2 a.m. and you guys just landing in Charlotte or something.
Oh yeah,
Craziness.
yeah.
Craziness.
No, it's true.
Well, one last thing then, because the next culture shock is probably going to be Aaron Rodgers coming to New York. But I don't know. Are you bothered by the Favre to Jets, Rodgers to Jets after the Packers comparison? They're totally different people, are they not?
They're totally different people. Totally different people. You're 100% correct.
And
remember, when Favre was traded to the Jets, he really wanted to be traded to Minnesota. Now, again, Favre did a great job for the Jets. The Jets were 8-3. They had just beaten 10-0 Tennessee Titans down in Nashville. He was one of the 4 or 5 contenders for MVP. Then they played in Seattle in that snow game in Seattle. He tore a muscle in his arm, kept it quiet because he wanted to keep that consecutive game streak going. And his last 4 games, he wasn't good. And the Nets lost 4 out of 5 and fell out of the playoff spot. But he played hard. But obviously, he was there just for the 1 year. Then he became a free agent, and he went to Minnesota and had a spectacular year the next year. And the Vikings lost in the NFC Championship game. Favre is different. I mean, Rodgers is different. I hope he has his heart into playing. I think he does. And he's still at the top of his game. Let's face it. He was the MVP in 20 and 21. So that's a year and a half ago. Back-to-back MVP. I mean, obviously, he would rise the Jets to a level where they can contend. And I'm not saying it's Super Bowl or bust, because anything can happen. Just be a contender, win 11, 12 games a year for the next 2 years, if he's only going to be here 2 years, and get as far as he can in the playoffs. Because once again, in the playoffs, anything can happen. A fumble, a referee's call, you know that. So we'll see. I think they're still going to get it done. It looks like they're going to sign one of his favorite receivers, Alan Lazard, today or the next day or two. So they have Nathaniel Hackett, one of his buddies, as offensive coordinator. So all signs are pointing that way. But with Rodgers, you never know because he's eccentric.
No, he is. Well, that's why we got to stay tuned, and that's why we're going to have you on for part 2 this week with the Terminello's take. Loved our take today, though. Loved your take on everything today, and please come back in the next few days as the Rodgers stuff heats up.
I look forward to it, and everybody enjoy the NCAAs.
There we go. Thursday, Friday. Well, tonight, starting out the 68. So.
Yep.
Craziness. All right.
Always a good time.
This is the March is actually a fun time after the whole after the whole February slog after the Super Bowl. At least this month is going to be fun. Although February was kind of entertaining in and of itself, I thought. Unlike other years, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I thought it was a pretty entertaining month, sports wise. But Lou, till then,
I agree with you. I think it was entertaining.
Till then, I hope your bank's okay, and we will talk to you soon.
Thank you, Al.